Bonjour et bienvenue à...
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Renault eWays, the totally unprecedented program that is dedicated to the electric mobility for today and tomorrow, which actually it engages everyone who is interested in this very, very important challenge for electric mobility for everyone. So we are here with you in Hangar Y in Meudon, close to Paris. With me, we have Vincent Carré, who is Director for car sharing operations for the Renault Group. Thank you for being here with us. And I'm also very happy to introduce Bertrand-Pierre Galey, who is the Deputy Mayor of Boulogne-Billancourt. Thank you for being with us, and we are connected remotely with the CEO of Ferrovial Mobility, Andrés Camacho. Hello, how are you, Andrés? Yes, hello, Alex. Hello from Madrid. Well, you will be speaking to us directly from Madrid. Now, as you know, the Renault eWays has really explored all of the paths to achieve zero carbon mobility. Among the solutions, we have car sharing, electric car sharing, and that really is the subject that we are going to be dealing with during this roundtable through a very concrete case study, which is Zity, car sharing service that I suggest you watch this video to explain to you.
Alors Vincent...
So, Vincent Carré, one could wonder, why is Renault investing in car sharing? It might be against your interests if everyone was to share cars. Well, no, not really, Alex. It's very much in our interest. Renault came to car sharing through electric cars. In 2012, when we started selling Renault Zoe, and we were the pioneers in Europe and worldwide, we began to talk to car sharing operators, and we realized that there was a mass phenomenon that was happening. And that can be illustrated by the number of clients we have in Madrid. We've already got 350,000 people, more than 20% of the adult population of Madrid, which are clients of electric car sharing. And to working with these operators and sharing with them, you know, Renault today has the biggest fleet of car sharing electric cars, 9,000 cars. Mainly Zoes, but we also have Zoes. We also have TWIZYs and Kangoos, and so we decided with them to launch Zity. Mr. Galey, maybe you can tell us, why is it that towns or cities want to do car sharing? What exactly is the position of a city like yours, for example? Well, yes, Boulogne-Billancourt is a city that is very close to Paris, and obviously we have traffic problems just like anyone else. Firstly, because it is a thoroughfare, and also because Boulogne people have a lot of cars and they use their cars a lot. So we are doing the best we can to provide a multiple offer, and among that, in that panel, car sharing is really adapted to certain needs, and it has very interesting effects in two ways. First of all, because it takes cars out of circulation. and in a car where lots of households have two cars, and so that should help us to reduce the number of cars that need parking spots on the roads, because that's a real problem for public spaces. It also makes it possible for people to circulate, for people who don't use their cars, and especially if it's an electric car, obviously then we have lots of advantages, because of course we have a climate plan as well to drive down emissions on our territory. The other element that's really interesting is that in order to drive people, or to drive people to stop using their own cars, we believe that it's much better to propose new offers rather than to impose constraints. And really, we have to propose, obviously, things that are attractive. And Zity cars are real cars. There are 5 seats. It's a real, it's got a real boot. You can go on holiday to the countryside for the weekend with it, etc. So it's really important, and it's a way for us to deal with the fact that people are always going to need cars, and that we need to have as few as possible on the roads. In a society where we've gone a lot, we are going to move from possession to access. You talk about access civilization today. Kids don't buy music anymore. They just download it, right? Well, not just young people. I just downloaded an album yesterday. Okay, so now let's go to Madrid. Hello, Madrid. We have Andres Camacho. Andres, can you tell us about Zity in Madrid? But before that, I do have a specific question to ask you. Can you explain to us why it is that an infrastructure company like Ferrovial has decided to get into car sharing? What's your commitment? Well, that's a really good question, Alex, because actually Ferrovial, as you said, is a company that deals with mobility infrastructure, mainly highways, but we also have airports, and we have an international presence that is especially strong in the United States. And we believe that the changes that are taking place in mobility, especially urban and interurban mobility, will have to have an impact on our infrastructures, and we will have to adapt to a new reality. And that's why for us, it's really important to understand and to properly apprehend what is happening in mobility, not just in infrastructures. And also we do want to take advantage of new commercial opportunities coming in through car sharing. And obviously this is one of those very powerful activities. Okay, Andres, can you maybe give us a few figures for Zity in Spain and tell us a little bit about it and give us your feedback from that experience? Well, yes, Zity was launched in 2017. And really, it was very, very positively welcomed from the very beginning. And the proof of that is we now have 300,000 users, including more than 60% of active people, which means that they use the cars every day and every month, and they use our services, and they really have a very, very positive appreciation of our services. We have about 650 vehicles out there right now, which are being used about on an average 6 to 8 times a day. Now, obviously, with COVID, those figures have gone down a little, but normally they're used on an average 6 to 8 times a day. And they can be used anywhere, anytime. If you live in Madrid, you can see, because Madrid is smaller than Paris, you can see Zitys really zipping along everywhere, every 5 minutes in the street. They're everywhere. They're ubiquitous. And you could say that Zity has really sort of made a space for itself as a mobility service. Well, that's really positive. Thank you very much, Andre. So, Mr. Galey, I know you'd like to talk about Boulogne-Billancourt. Can you tell us a little bit about why you chose Zity? Well, obviously, there's a historical link between Renault and Boulogne-Billancourt. You know that Renault has occupied in the past a large part of our territory, and it still has its headquarters in Boulogne. And a lot of people from Boulogne have worked for Renault, and so have our families. And my family is a part of that as well. So We are very interested in Renault, and we like to be pioneers in the Paris, Greater Paris area. We, for example, had the biggest eco neighborhood in the Paris region. And so this is a city that is very much engaged in the progress towards sustainable cities. And our slogan for the last elections was making the city easy for you. And I think Zity is very much a part of making Boulogne-Billancourt sustainable and easy. Okay, so can you maybe give us a few figures for Zity in Boulogne-Billancourt? Well, we haven't obviously moved forward as much or as fast as our friends in Madrid yet, but it's still not too bad. We've set up certain things that make life easier. For example, you can park free of charge, and we have certain spots that are only for electric car sharing, and we have 114,000 inhabitants. We have 900 Zity customers today. So, since I was invited to this meeting, I've been talking about this around me. People are very much interested. I think that our town is very well adapted to the development of this market because it is a town where there are a lot of people moving in or moving out every day. And so this balance is very much in favor of the development of Zity. Today, Zitys are also very much used over the weekend to go to Paris because people from Boulogne like to go to the capital over the weekends, and also to, the forests surrounding Paris. So I think the city is very quickly going to compete with Madrid as far as the Zitization is concerned. Well, what's really interesting for us is the way you set up this free float, how the fact that it works. Well, yes, it's free to park a Zity anywhere for free float electric vehicles in general, but right now it's Zity. And we've also set up charging terminals that are dedicated for car sharing vehicles. And obviously, you need to ensure that the infrastructure is up and running before the service can actually become credible. You have to ensure that it's easy for people to have access to these cars. Well, let's come back to Andres Camacho, because Andres, maybe you can tell us how did you accompany, how did the municipal services accompany the deployment of Zity in Madrid? Well, says Andres, Madrid really is one of the biggest laboratories for shared transport in the world. And right now we have more than 30,000 vehicles. So cars, motorbikes, bicycles that have been placed at the disposal of Madrileños. And the role of the city was very positive. So any mobility that you can share can be parked free of charge. But we've also set aside spaces that are dedicated to electric car sharing cars. And so we are moving forward, and it's very much linked to the mobility services of the municipality. So we are doing a lot of collaborations to ensure that mobility for people becomes more fluid, and it is a complement and not a replacement for public transport. Because, public transport is always going to be necessary. That's true for Madrid, and I'm quite sure that it's true for Paris as well, because obviously public transport is the most used. Well, Vincent, it might be interesting to hear from you. Why did you set up this partnership between Renault and Ferrovial? Well, this partnership was built in Spain. Ferrovial is a group that has the same size as Renault. It also has a worldwide strategy, and we really complement each other ideally, because we brought in our expertise on vehicles. We also brought in our cars, our Zoe, with a lot of expertise in electric cars. Tomorrow we will be bringing in the Dacia Spring, which is even better suited to car sharing. But we also do all the maintenance, and we bring in our experience for fleet services, management services. Ferrovial has brought the expertise in urban circles, which we didn't have, but also all of their digital experience for this service, especially tools to relocate the cars, because these are free-floating cars, so you can park them anywhere you like. So They've brought in their digital process that we didn't have to locate the cars. So really, we do complement each other. And I would like to say that, this did happen by chance, but I must say that we understand each other with the Ferrovial teams, and it's worked really well. Well, maybe, Andres, you can say a few words about the partnership as well. Well, yes, of course, as Vincent said, for us, Renault is the ideal partner, really, for car sharing. But I think what is even more important than car sharing is that we have the same vision in terms of business. We look at things from a non-speculative, from a long-term, sustainable industrial point of view. And I think that the experience of electric vehicles that Renault has, its experience in B2C marketing was very important because, Ferrovial is obviously a B2B company. So the B2C expertise of Renault was very important to us, and the very strong international presence of Renault was also very important. Renault has a great network. It's practically worldwide. So that was very positive for us. And for us, we've been working for a long time with data applied to management, especially for highways and airports. So we do have a very, very strong data and digital department, and that's really important for a company, I think, like Zity. And above all, as Vincent said, we work very well together. It's really great. We understand each other perfectly. I speak a little bit of French, and Vincent speaks very good Spanish. And so we get on very well. Perfect. So Vincent speaks Spanish as well. So now let's go into a little bit more detail. How does Zity work, and what are the next stages? Well, Zity is a free-float system of car sharing. It's got a lot of advantages. It means people can park free of charge wherever they like, but on the authorized parking spots. And that gives us a huge advantage because we have jockeys that will go out and get the cars and bring them back. For example, in Paris, we have 4 charging bases where the cars are charged and washed every 3 or 4 days. And so the cars are in very good shape. If a customer alerts us, they are washed even earlier. So we have a level of quality that's much higher than what we were used to earlier. And every day we are charging 100 to 200 cars, and we can go out and put them where we need them. And we have relocation tools that makes it possible for us to decide, depending on the day and the hour, exactly where the 2 cars are needed. So it's not a fixed fleet, it's moving about all the time. And we have certain positionings of cars on Friday evenings because people are going on weekend and going off on a weekend. So it's not the same spots where you need the Zity cars as you do during the week. Okay, so we're going to answer a few questions. You've sent us in some questions, so let's take some of them. For example, wouldn't it be interesting to find a partnership with airports of Paris to find parking spots there? Because that would be great, for people coming in to Roissy Charles de Gaulle. And that's a really good question, I think, because I used to come into Roissy very often. Well, yes, that's a very good question. I mean, Roissy and Orly, we're going to do both. So we are discussing this, and we've actually moved forward to set up car sharing zones. I can't go further into that today because you know that the activity of Parisian airports and worldwide airports really is really bad right now. So but we will continue our talks with them. And we're already present, obviously, in Madrid airports. Okay, next question, please. Don't hesitate to send them in to us. They are live questions, so we can get them. We can take them. When are you going to integrate Spring into Zity? Well, I could answer, but so could Andres. We are looking after this right now. The car's coming in at the beginning of next year, so we want to operate them. We want to integrate them as quickly as possible. Well, for Ferrovial, after Madrid, have you been discussing this with other Spanish cities with Ferrovial? Andres, did you hear the question? Yes, and could we have the answer? Yes, I do understand the question. Now, we have to also take into consideration the fact that not all cities are suitable for car sharing because the city has to be big, spread out, and mobility has to be of a specific kind. So in Spain, we have Madrid, we have Barcelona, which are the big cities where we think that car sharing is possible. And we also have cities that like Valencia or Bilbao, where we might set up a slightly different model of car sharing. But of course, we are in talks with all of these cities, Barcelona, Bilbao, Valencia, and then Malaga as well. And they're all interested, really. It's true that now with the COVID, of course, all negotiations have slowed down. But I believe that car sharing is so do you think it's a question of political goodwill and determination, or is it just is it a question of certain cities that are more adapted to car sharing? I don't know if you can hear me now, says Andres. Yes, I think, says Bertrand Galey, I think there's a question of number of population, of inhabitants, and also density. So it really is a sort of system that works very well for the huge urban areas. Boulogne-Billancourt is the second one after Paris, but you have much smaller towns. But I think the fact that we are part of the Greater Paris area means that car sharing is much more likely to be developed in this area. I have a question actually. So I want to know, could a subscriber in Boulogne use the Zity system in Madrid? What's the answer to that? Well, the answer to that is of course he can or she can. So when you have a Zity credit, you can use it everywhere, anywhere. So in Paris, in Boulogne, or in Madrid, it's the same account, the same application. So you can see we have lots of questions. Even Mr. Galey had a question. So we have another question here. Have you found the right business model? And do you think that you have the right business model with Zity? Well, says Vincent Carré, yes, the answer is yes. So I think the answer is right in front of you with the Dacia Spring, which has been dressed in its Zity colors. So we realized that we should tackle this market from 2007 onwards with a lot of frugality, a lot of intelligence. What do you mean frugality? What do you mean by that? Well, what I mean is that, these are operations where you have to be careful about everything. You can't just dive into it. You have to first ensure that the municipality agrees with you. You can't impose yourself in a city if the municipality doesn't agree with you. You have to find the right kind of partnership like we've had done with Boulogne-Billancourt or with Madrid. Or you have to be careful. You have to be really good at the operational part of it. That's what Ferrovial has added to us. Then you have to adapt your price. You have to adapt your content, the robustness of your vehicles, and the reliability. And that is really Dacia Spring is great for that. Okay, very specific question. What exactly is the composition of the Zity company? Is it 50-50 between Renault and Ferrovial? Andres, can you hear me? Yes, it is. It's 50-50. It's a joint venture, held 50-50 by Renault and Ferrovial. Yes, it is. So that means that we have to agree on everything. That means we have to negotiate and discuss things a lot. But as Andres said earlier, we get on very well, so it's really quite easy. Now, why have you chosen an operator without dedicated parking slots in your city? Why not something like Autolib? So, Mr. Galey. Well, I don't know whether we can now, stand back and look at what Autolib's results were. But of course, it's much easier and, to have cars that are available anywhere all over town rather than having to go to a specific station. The other advantage is that you don't have to block too much of your road space, which we had to do with the Autolib stations. So now these are they can be used for all electric cars. So that's why we're not dependent on a brand. We need to find a word in French for free floating. I discovered free floating with you, and I think I'm enthusiastic about the term in French. It's free floating in French. So, well, I think that this way to access the car is much more technologically advanced than having to go to a station and get it. And there's no reason why you should stick with a system that is today obsolete. I have another question. So Zity, is Zity part of the new mobilities of the Renault Group? No, the answer to that is no. It's not going to be part of the new mobilities of the group. It will be one of the brands of the new mobilities brand. I can't say more about that today, but our CEO, Mr. Demio, will tell you about his strategy in more detail later. So coming back to what Mr. Galey said earlier about the downloading. This is an interesting question because when you had Vélibs in the beginning, we thought it was just young people, but I see a lot of older people using them. So what is the typical profile of the Zity user? Is it a lot of young people, or is it not at all what you expected it to be? Well, actually, it's quite simple. 50% of young people and 50% of not so young people. Like in life, when you have 360,000 customers in Madrid, there's everybody. So there's about 50% of families. That's why 1/3 of our cars are equipped with child seats. And we have two types of customers. You have people who are between 18 to 25, and they have naturally gravitated towards car sharing because it's the sharing economy, it's the access economy, so it's natural for them. They don't want to own a car anymore. They just want to share it, have access to it. And then you have customers who have come to it who are between 25 to 50 or 60 years old, and they have come to it because it's more and more difficult to own a car in the city and to run it. And they realize that this works really well, and they become very loyal customers. Okay, that's perfect. Andres, would you like to add anything on the profile of the users in Madrid? Yes, as Vincent said, here in Madrid, we have almost 400,000 users, and everyone is represented really in there. So in the beginning, it's true that we had young people with their mobiles who were quick to access Zity. But today, really, it's anyone, really anyone. So, and that's a very good sign. And then there's another thing in Madrid that we've seen, which is that because there are lots of car sharing operators, not just car sharing, but other sorts of mobility as well, it's a way really of managing, I would say. It's become an integral part of transport, So if you speak to anyone, they will say, they'll have 2 or 3 or 4 apps for shared mobility. It might be a motorbike app and a bike app and a car sharing app. So it's become a way of life. Okay, so Mr. Galey, today the world is completely different. Did you notice as well that the profile of users has changed completely? Yes, users, we do have all sorts of users. I've talked to you about families, and that's something that we really liked in Boulogne because we want to be a city that is open and welcoming to families. And what I heard from what was said here today is that really nobody uses a single method of transport. What is really good is to be able to offer a whole range of possibilities to people. In Boulogne, you can start off with your bicycle, and then you might need a Zity to maybe go and see your grandmother who lives 100 kilometers away from Paris, and then you might use public transport to go to work. I think what's really going to be important for the mobility movida, right, in Spanish, for the cities of the future is that you have so many different possibilities, so many different offers, so that really it's not a constraint, it's now really about freedom. So between movida and free floating, this very international round table here. So from Hangar Y. Thank you very much to Vincent Carré, Bertrand-Pierre Galey, and thank you very much, Andres Camacho, as well, for having been with us. And thank you very much for having watched us. I hope that you learned as much as I did from this panel. And do please start car sharing in the future, because this is the right time for it. Thank you. Goodbye.